Wholeness, beautiful beings, welcome to Rashida Silver Tree, my channel anyway. Let's just get right into it. Love. What do you do when you cannot receive the love that you seek or the love that you need from another? This can be parental, this can be from an actual lover, this can be from friend, this can be from groups of people or an institution or an organization that you work with. Love has many different colors and flavors and shapes and languages and textures. Love is poetic, okay? In the way where a reader of a poem can interpret it. There's thousands of different interpretations of a poem. And I feel like that poems or poetry itself is the closest thing that love could be if love were to be in words. So I say all that with trying not to sound too poetic or romantic. Um, is that, it can be quite hurtful and painful and frustrating when you have a connection with somebody, and I'm going to use parental for example in this message, because I find we in adulthood we reach a stage where we make a lot of the unhealed wounds and a lot of the unhealed things that we bury, from our childhood and early, adolescence to early adulthood. They start to bubble up in I would say, and when you're middle age, early middle ages to like late middle age, and it just bubbles up, right? And so the parts of yourself that seek out that mommy and that seek out that the love from that daddy, it doesn't, it doesn't get, there's a part of you that doesn't get filled up. There's a void in there. And so I find that observing a lot of the close relationships in my life regarding my siblings and my parents and how I view things and what love is, and always constantly redefining what that is for me. I find that this seeking and this desire to, especially with parental love, okay, parental love is the foundation of our experiences as human beings. It is so needed and so dire. I'm in the middle of preparing for my midterm exams for grad school, and one of the assignments for this week was she wanted us to really just look at the images of um, the depravity of mental institutions and how far they've come in the past, I would say either century or 50 years even, how the major improvements and what takes place when one doesn't receive that parental love and support and nourishment and nurturing, from the father, from the mother, from the community, from family. And oftentimes, year after year, decade after decade, we act out in many different ways, to get this love that we're seeking from the ones who made us, the ones who brought us into this reality, the ones we call mommy, the ones we call daddy. And, I would say when one is, you're not getting that love, a specific kind that you need, you have to learn to parent those parts of yourself. That's called maturity. When you enter in that space where you learn how to fulfill those mother father wounds within yourself, when you no longer bash your mother, bash your father, bash the ones who raised you, and you learn how to connect to the inner child, listen to the voice of the inner child, listen to the pain, listen to the hopes and the fears and the desires and the wants and the needs of your inner child. When that takes place, when you learn how to father that inner child, when you learn how to mother that inner child, that parental love that you seek so much and so badly turns into something else. A little personal, at this point right now, regarding like my relationship with my mother, my divine earth mother in this world, this planet, I am grateful she chose to have me. She chose to raise me. She chose to keep me. And she made me, her choices made me develop into what I am today to a certain extent, right? Because I believe we come to a point in our life, in our adulthood, where we start making choices, real authentic choices, once we find our most authentic voice. But my relationship with my mother got to a point, I would say, in my early, like mid 20s. I've realized, it was my responsibility to love my inner child, and I started to learn how to parent the inner child. I stopped putting the job and the responsibility on my mom to mommy me and to love me in the ways that I needed when I knew she could not. It's that moment when you say, you know what, the type of love that you can offer me is all that you can offer, and it may not be in the way that I need it, and I release you from that burden of having to love me in that way, having to love me in that capacity. I find that to uphold that burden on a parent that in your eyes or your opinion and your experience has mistreated you or neglected you or hurt you in any way, year after year, decade after decade, it begins to turn into something toxic. And I've seen this in my own personal life, even for myself. Like, there are parts in my life where I wanted or sought at my mom's approval for perfectionism and wanting to make her proud and wanting to do this and just, and it's still something I'm grappling with my father, because I just want to make him proud. But at times I find that sometimes it's not always good enough, or it's not enough. I'm not raising the bar enough, or you're not making enough money. You need to go higher. You need to go higher, go better, do better, go higher. And instead of just being present and being content with what is and what I have, there's always this internal voice, right, from our parents. We hear the voice of our mother and our father, the critical, right, our critical inner voice. Where does that come from, right? I'm not pushing blame on mothers or fathers out there, but it's just to kind of put things into perspective. You free yourself when you learn to love the inner child, and you relieve your mother and your father of that burden of, you were supposed to love me this way, you were supposed to care for me this way, you were supposed to support me this way. Oh well, like, you have to let that toxicity go. They're not meant to live up to that standard of loving you in the way that you think and you believe you need it. That's your job. Right? It doesn't make it any less painful. It doesn't make it any less less easy or anything. This is the struggle. This is the suffering of humanity, where we're constantly needing, or I'm sorry, some button. We're constantly looking and seeking, like, someone love me, someone love me, someone love me. And it's like, and on the subject of love, it's more of a beingness. It's a state of being. Yes, you can act or you can believe in the acts of love, right? That's a form of love, an expression of love for someone. But before someone can commit an act of love, they have to embody the being of it first, I believe, right? Just like with evil, like, before people commit an evil act, they become that first, and it's unseen. Love is unseen. Evil is unseen, and it's something that we embody first before we just go out and express it and put it into action, right? But back on, just relieve your mothers and your fathers of the burden of what they should have done. It's just unfair, it's unhealthy, it's imbalanced. At a certain point, yes, your feelings are valid. Yes, the neglect was real. Yes, the harm, the mistreatment, the pain that you had to endure because you didn't receive what you needed at that time. But to hold and imprison your parents, it perpetuates this suffering. Pain is unavoidable. Suffering, I believe, is by choice, right? And yes, like suffering is unavoidable as well in a certain extent. I mean, life is suffering. You have death everywhere. And death to me is just part of the life cycle where the only constant thing is change. And so change involves transformation. That's what death is. It's just this one thing moving into and transitioning into another, and then moving and transitioning into another thing and another thing. And just you have this beautiful cycle. Release and break the toxic cycle. Set your parents free. Set yourself free. And begin to embody and love that inner child that's been neglected. It took me moving out to the middle of nowhere in a desert to begin to actually hear myself, to hear my inner voice. Even at times, even though I'm obsessed with being of service for humanity through teaching and education or through hospital work and working with patients, I still a work in progress on being really good at creating the space to hear my inner thoughts, and feel my inner feelings, and embody this state of love and the being of love, to recognize what is the evil within, what is the imbalance within, what is the opposite of love within myself. Because we not only carry this frequency of love, we carry the opposite of it. And that is a thing that latches onto our parents, needing still from them. Any of you that have suffered maltreatment from those who have conceived you and brought you into this world, you have my compassion, you have my love, you have my attention and my ears and my heart. But know one thing: as an authentic sovereign being, you must make the choice to free yourself and liberate yourself from this type of wound. It's not healthy. It's not good. It doesn't support you. It keeps you stuck in time. You're frozen in time, back at the event that happened, right? The most traumatic events, those are the most stagnant parts of ourselves. The most wounded parts of ourselves is at that age, right? At 4 years old, this happened. At 8 years old, this happened. At 16, this happened. And we always retort back to that state of mind. We become that being that once was, because there's something left there. And freezing yourself in time, you're also forcing your parents. You know that there's a saying, or there's like a human experience, that when you return home after a few days, you actually retort back to the psychological age that you were with your parents at a certain time frame. I don't know what the phenomenon is called, but that everyone always gets like the ick a little bit, but like, oh, I gotta go home for a certain amount of time. There's some people who love it because they've released a lot of the toxic cycle, or they never really experienced all that, and they come from a very welcoming, loving, open, healing family. Or there are people who come from a lot of hurt, a lot of pain. And so a lot of what's unhealed, either your parents come to you or you go to them, it can trigger a lot of unhealed crap. So I say all that to just, as a reminder, release yourself, free your parents. Are they deserving? And that's the thing. You'll say, well, they don't deserve to be free of the pain they caused me. Is that right? Are you okay? And I'm not dismissing sexual abuse. I'm not dismissing psychological, mental, emotional abuse, physical abuse. I'm not watering that down. That's effed up. You don't have to go and say, hey, I forgive you, or hey, I forgive you. You don't have to do that physically, but you gotta let them go. Let it go. Free yourself. Because once you are free, you begin to grow and expand. You're not stagnant. You're not imprisoned. You're not frozen in time back in 2013 or 2003 or 1993 or 1982 or 1971 or 1950, right? And you're 6 years old and that happened to you, or 19 you know, 70, right? We all have those moments on our timeline and our lifeline where they're really poignant, right? They're really like, I really went through something here and I don't want to go back. And you don't have to, but you have to make that choice. I gotta go because I gotta make my mugwort tea. I gotta study. I gotta get ready for bed. Maybe watch a little of something and meditate. There's a lot to do still. I'm so tired. Oh my God. Oh, and I'm around moon time too, so I'm just like, and I got to shower. Like, there's just so many things I have to do. Do. But remember, embody the state of beingness. Be love. Stop looking for love. Because whatever you're seeking is also seeking you, and you have to be aware that whatever's seeking you may not be healthy for you. So stop seeking love. You are that. You just have to realize it. As always, take care. Good night.